Wakey, wakey, arise and shine. It's another beautiful day, 20th of April, 2023, and I'm glad that you're joining us here on Morning Prime. Today is Thursday, and here's Sokone coming your way, where we update you on how the state of the economy is in the country. I'm glad that, of course, and I trust that you've had a lovely restorative night, and you're ready for the good day. I'm joined by my panelists this morning up and early. Dr. Shem, who's the chair of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. Also, we have with us Professor Gituro, Wainaina, who is a professor at the School of Business, University of Nairobi. We'll be joined also by Shakeel Shabbir, who is a member of parliament from Kisumu East. Also, we'll be joined much later by Ndiritu Muriithi, who is an economist and immediate former governor of Laikipia. A lot to discuss as far as the economy is concerned. The Central Bank of Kenya has also cancelled the issuance of bonds. This is indicative of how also the state of the economy is as far as money is concerned. Also, on that particular front of revenue for the counties, there seem to be spat between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio as to the amount of revenue that should be disbursed to the county. We have Kenya Kwanza standing on the ground that they want that particular amount to remain at 345 billion shillings, while we have Azimio saying it should be 407. So we shall also look at this particular debate that is ongoing with the legislators and how it is bound to affect the counties as well, and a raft of other issues as far as the economy is concerned. But let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. We begin with the bold paper. This is a Standard. I was paid 400 million shillings because I'm smart. Right? He has the chops, and this is the former chair of Safaricom, John Ngumi. And more questions are being asked here. The mystery surrounding the rushed 6 billion shillings payment to a UK company by the Treasury for control of Telecom Kenya just days before last year's polls deepens as President Uhuru Kenyatta's ally John Ngumi reveals that the venture capital firm was willing to take partial payment. Here are some of the statements they made. We have Kuria Kimani, who is the National Assembly Finance Committee chairman, saying, what is it that you exactly did that warranted such kind of payment? Don't you think you were paid a lot of money belonging to taxpayers? Also, deep inside your heart, do you think the money is commensurate with what you did? 6.1 billion shillings, that is the amount that Treasury paid Helios investors for 60% stake of Telecom Kenya without parliamentary approval. And that is a story that you can follow inside the Standard today. Of course, we'll run you by some of the deliberations yesterday at or during the proceedings with the committee where John Ngumi was appearing. Road accident shock for drivers in tough rules to protect students. Shock for drivers in tough rules to protect students. The Ministry of Transport has now come up with new measures on how to curb the road carnage that now is rising in the country. Looking on top here, we have the flagger, or the teaser I should say. Ruto Raila MPs close ranks on bipartisan talks. Ministry freezes projects because of cash. And also inside, crisis in Sudan. You'll find all that laid out for you inside crisis in Sudan. It's Kipruto versus Bekele at London race, and everyone is keeping their eyes peeled to see how that will pan out. Real Estate Magazine comes in handy for you every Thursday. You can read all about how the property and the real investment is panning out in the country. Daily Nation is up next. Cheap unga puzzle. That is what is hogging the front page of the Daily Nation. Cost of living. Many retailers are still stuck with expensive stocks and are reluctant to cut prices. Ugali lovers across the country will have to wait a little longer to enjoy the cheap maize flour that President William Ruto promised will hit retail shelves this week. Days after this announcement, a spot check by Nation reveals the prices remain unchanged for most of the brands, except for those of 1 Miller. Where is a cheap unga? That is their budding question. And the story continues on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. Top new rules to boost safety in schools. Members of Parliament have demanded the establishment of clinics with at least one nurse in all public schools and inspection of food by health officials. The lawmakers were discussing the deaths of 3 students and a teacher at Sacred Heart Mukumu Girls High School in Kakamega County, with authorities blaming it on food poisoning. They have also called on food handlers in all schools to undergo training and ensure that they are disease-free before handling food to be taken by the learners. This story continues on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. KRA to operate 24-hour shifts at port to end cargo clearance delays. And Justice Babu Owino has a case to answer over DJ Evolve shooting. Court rules. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Looking at the teaser on top here, all drivers set for refresher test. Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen announces new measures to curb road crashes, including mandatory driving retests and medical fitness test for drivers, fitting of speed limiters, and vetting of all public service vehicles across the country. This story continues on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, Ruto Raila teams laid the ground for bipartisan talks. Team allied to President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga struck a last-minute deal, I should say, yesterday to hold the inaugural meeting of the bipartisan joint committee. This is the Daily Nation. This is how it looks. We have the Star up next. Truce, Ruto and Raila brigades agreed to talks last minute to meet today to iron out preliminary issues. That is what the flagger is reading here. The issue of inclusion of MP Kenan in panel remains unresolved. You can follow the story on page 6 of the Star. KDF repels Eastern DRC rebels. Peace a priceless treasure. And you can see an insert here of KDF soldiers spending some time with children at Kibumba 2 area in Goma. There is a revenue debate I was talking about. President William Ruto can be seen here when he hosted iftar dinner at State House, Nairobi on April the 11th. Also, DM leader Raila Odinga during iftar dinner at Crown Plaza in Nairobi on Tuesday evening. Azimio Kenya Kwanza clash over county cash. President Ruto and Raila Odinga's Senate teams have bitterly clashed as the debate on cash to counties took a political turn. The camps are split, with Ruto's men pushing for 385.4 billion shillings. That is a correct figure. While Raila's allies are demanding 407 billion shillings in equitable share for the devolved units in the next fiscal year. Kenya Kwanza senators argued it would be unrealistic to allocate counties 407 billion shillings amid cash flow challenges. We will follow this story inside the Star this morning. Also, Kianda founder, this is Angeles, fell in love with Kenya. Read all about how she came to the country and established, of course, the Kianda schools or group of schools as well and colleges. You can follow the story inside the Star. Dr. Mwende covers 7.4 kilometers at Mount Everest on day 2 of climb. This is the first Kenyan lady, or the first Kenyan who is attempting to climb Mount Everest. Faith Mwende, you can read all about her inside the Star this morning. Let's move on to see what we have on the front page of the People Daily. Hops as Ruto Raila teams begin talks. Hops as Ruto Raila teams begin talks. Diplomacy, Kenya Kwanza and Azimio delegates scheduled meetings to unlock stalemate over contentious issues raised by their principals in effort to prevent national crisis. And you can follow the story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Tough options for Ruto over Kibochi's successor. Delicate balancing act for president as he seeks heir to retiring military chief in the face of 2 choices and the Tonje rules. And we can see General Kibochi, who will be exiting soon. And this is now the headache of the president on whom is going to take over. CS issues measures to tame accident and legislators radical rules for schools. MPs proposed that institutions should have doctors for learners and the food supply chain controlled by the state. That's the People Daily. Taifa Leo, Uhuru kimya Ruto akitikisa Jubilee. Uhuru kimya Ruto akitikisa Jubilee is a splash. Utata waibuka kuhusu uamuzi wa jopo la kutatua mizozo ya vyama Kioni na Kega wakidai kuibuka washindi. You can follow that story inside today's copy of Taifa Leo, where it's a relief now for Kione, I should say, and Muriithi on their positions in the Jubilee Party, where the tribunal has made a ruling in their favor. This is Taifa Leo. Let's look what the teaser says on top. Wapi unga nafuu serikali iliahidi? Wapi unga nafuu serikali iliahidi? Swali nyeti that is being asked there on the front page of Taifa Leo. Let's buckle down to some business. Treasury cash data fails to reveal a broke government. Treasury cash data fails to reveal a broke government. State blamed March salary delays on debt repayment. March revenues up by 84.2 billion shillings as loans dues rose 54.6 billion shillings. This story continues inside the Business Daily this morning. And rich investors to buy extra shares without a CMA approval. Investors will be free to buy stakes of up to 30% in listed companies without the approval of the Capital Markets Authority, raising the thresholds for notifying the regulator of a potential takeover. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily. Also, state owes road contractors, landowners 145 billion shillings. The government owes road contractors and landowners 145 billion shillings in pending bills for certified works, adding to the working capital uncertainty for companies and timely delivery of ongoing projects around the country. Jubilee declares 870 million shillings dividend on the windfall from alliance deals. You can read all about that inside the Business Daily this morning. We cross over now to Uganda, where the story of the iron sheets continues. The evidence against Ndiritu, fast and furious. Director of Public Prosecutions tabled 7 grounds and 21 documents as evidence to give State Minister for Karamoja Affairs, Agnes Ndiritu, who becomes the first minister to be committed to trial, I should say, over mismanagement of iron sheets meant for Karamoja sub-region. Clamping on corruption, Museveni is coming down hard. And heavy fighting in Sudan blocks Ugandans' rescue. Heavy fighting in Sudan blocks Ugandans' rescue. And on a good note here, Ugandan scientists develop cancer detection machine. Uganda scientist develops cancer detection machine. You can read all about that inside the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda this morning. We cross over to Tanzania, where we have the Citizen. Moody's gives Tanzania favorable credit rating. Moody gives Tanzania a favorable credit rating. Also, Minister allays fears over safety of Tanzanians in conflict-hit Sudan. Government also mulls funds to ease state entities' capital wars. All that inside the Citizen. And Nimrod Mukono's legacy as seen by Zito Kabwe. You can read all about that inside the Citizen if you're waking up in Uganda, in Tanzania. Still in Tanzania, mzigo wa lawama wagusa mawaziri. Mzigo wa lawama wagusa mawaziri. Kusuasua kwa mashirika ya umma. Well, that is the Tanzanian tongue there, Swahili. You can read all about it inside Mwananchi if you're waking up in Tanzania. In Rwanda, inside Rwanda's plan to make avocado a major export crop. Inside Rwanda's plan to make avocado a major export crop. You can read all about it inside the New Times. Also, Gisimenti to operate as car-free zone once a month. EABC urges cost reduction of digital tax stamp. That is another story that you want to follow inside the New Times if you're waking up in Rwanda. By the way, this week, this is what the East African has been holding as a splash: anatomy of graft, web of corruption, wastage and neglect in Tanzanian public sector agencies threatens to taint Samia's legacy ahead of the 2025 polls. But she has stepped up to slay the dragon. That is a story that you want to follow on page 4 and 5 of the East African this week. Also, citizens alarmed as region's government ran on empty. They're bracing for belt tightening States cut spending and raise taxes amid funding squeeze blamed on date, low revenues. You can read all about it inside the East African this morning. China Daily is up next. China, Gabon agree to bolster ties. Countries' friendship built on rock-solid foundation, says Xi. And you can see an insert here of President Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Lingyan posing with Gabonese President Ali Bongo Ondimba and his wife Sylvia Bongo Ondimba before the two leaders talks at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing on Wednesday. You can read all about this inside the China Daily. Nation's space of recovery offers global inspiration. That is what we have there as well. Well, I shall be writing this on the split screen as we continue with our conversation with our panelists who are joining us this morning. I'd mentioned Dr. Shem Ochuodho. Also, we have Professor Gituro Wainaina. Shakeel Shabbir is joining us as well, and Ndiritu Muriithi. And we want to cover a lot as far as the dailies are concerned. And maybe on a lighter note, I shall begin also on what we have as editorial cartoons, just as an introduction there. And let me just drop in. Professor Gituro Wainaina, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, how are you?
Yeah, I'm smart.
Thank you very much. You're smart.
I'm smart.
How much should we pay you for your chops?
Have a B. Have a B will do.
Have a B will do.
Yes.
Indeed. Yeah, Professor is just alluding to what we have on the front page of the Standard if you're waking up this morning. But we have the editorial cartoon here. My brother, dear brother, bro.
Indeed. That's nice.
Yeah, but you know what, actually, why Victor has actually drawn this is because we had President saying, of course, I'll welcome Raila Odinga as my brother if he stops this demonstration. So now this is what he's picked. Brother, my brother, dear brother,
Indeed.
bro. Stop the demonstration. But you can see the table. The table there is broken funny, there. Yeah? It's Taming Baba. Now looking at the manual. What should we do next?
Yeah, he's looking at the manual and the handshake or something. Is it a handshake?
This is the latest manual there on Taming Baba 2.0. Gituro Wainaina. 3.0. Oh yeah, this is 3.0 actually. This is 3.0. And Ndiritu Muriithi, thank you for joining us this morning. But if we just have back the editorial cartoon so that we can comment on it as well. We have the demonstrations. They're saying we'll be in Muranga. We have the local security in Muranga who are saying Raila is banned from coming. He's bad to come actually to Muranga.
Yes.
He's unwanted. That is the word they've used. He's unwanted in Muranga. And the police also have not given the permit so far. Yes?
Permit? I mean, why we... first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, for sure.
Morning.
I mean, which century are we in? Kenyans do not need a permit in order to meet, congregate, do whatever they want to do. Kenyans are encouraged to notify the police.
Notify the police, indeed.
Which I'm quite certain Mwangi Wairia, former governor of Muranga, did so. We saw it in the media. So I would say the police are playing right into the hands of the whole thing, because they will come off as draconian. They will come off as state repressing Kenyans.
Yes.
Because what is wrong with Kenyans meeting in a place in Muranga to discuss whatever they want to discuss? And for avoidance of doubt, Kenyans no longer need permits in order to meet. And if there is any police officer who thinks that Kenyans need a permit, then he or she is living in an era long past.
Yes.
And the basic requirement of the law is that if you, for example, if you intend on a demo, notify police. To the best of my knowledge, what has been called in Muranga is not a demo, but a meeting, get together. Yeah. in the Mothers Union Hall or something like this.
You see how well the governor is playing with words. Huh?
No, it's not a question of. I mean, what has truly been called for is a town hall conversation.
Is a town hall?
Yes, so it is people meeting at a specific place, sitting down to discuss amongst themselves. How can that be a threat to anybody's security? So it would be very unfortunate, in fact, the way police are behaving. But you know, going back to your editorial cartoon,
yes,
this is the point. Perhaps they are not reading that manual very well.
They're not reading it.
They are not reading it. If they were reading it, you would know that.
Yes.
As soon as you confront people, telling them they cannot enjoy their right, they are going to fight back.
Yeah, because I was...
And you're just falling into the trap. And it is so unnecessary. Yeah, because you can no longer constrain Kenyans from meeting whenever and wherever they wish.
Yeah, because I was just reading this and I was wondering also, how does the local security team also make that particular judgment that you're telling Raila is unwanted in Murang'a? He's got the constitutional right to be anywhere, in this country.
I mean,
I think that's in no doubt. He can be anywhere, not even Murang'a. But I think that is the purpose. What's the purpose of the meeting? I think that's what we should be looking at. And my view, and unless it affects you personally, don't. I met a friend of mine. He had to place his shield. It was hit with a stone. Lucky God, he was damn lucky. He never got it. And I think what is coming out, and I think it would be a bit sober as a country. Nobody is asking you not to demonstrate, but peacefully. Now, the issue comes, we were peaceful, then the police came. We would expect that to happen. And I think if you can't appreciate that or recognize that, then you're naive. And this gentleman told me he was just going home at about 6 on Gong Road, and this huge stone comes in. I'm no difficult, but the Constitution is also extremely clear. Either 67, I'm not sure.
37. Sorry? 37.
37. You have that opportunity.
37, yes.
But the property must be protected.
All right.
When you start hitting the rural areas, and right now, say, let the people of Murang'a plant maize. It's the planting season, right? And let the town hall, maybe Mheshimiwa. The way I understand town hall meetings, and had opportunity to have that when I was in my graduate school in the States. Very sober meetings, extremely sober. Issues are discussed.
now, what makes you believe that this town hall meeting in Murang'a is not going to be sober and issues discussed?
By the history.
Question.
By the history.
A week ago, I think, or less, the opposition had a town hall meeting in Ufungamano. Very peaceful, very orderly, very important issues were canvassed. For your information, Professor, this last Monday, the farmers of Makomboki Tea Factory were demonstrating, were picketing. Why were they picketing? Because they have not been paid a single shilling. I mean, KTDA has deducted some, charges that they claim are related to fertilizer and other charges, and deducted to an extent that a farmer is getting 0 shillings as pay this April. And the farmers were out picketing and demonstrating at the factory on Monday. So this is, gentlemen, this is the new Kenya. Now, all people have said in Murang'a, let us meet at Mothers Union Hall in Murang'a town. Let us discuss. To the best of my knowledge, the convener has said something like this. The Deputy President of this Republic has said that some Kenyans are not shareholders of, that this government is a limited liability company, or like a limited liability company, and that some people are not shareholders. And the convener of the meeting has said, well, look, can the non-shareholders of that area then meet, to reflect on what is the meaning of that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Let me just rope in Shabbir, Shakeel as well. It's been a long while since I saw you.
Today you have put me in three politicians.
Three politicians. Who's
I think I'll do more of listening.
There are only two politicians in the house.
Shem Ochuodho, once a politician is always a politician.
As we welcome Mheshimiwa, we are in the business of leadership. Prof. We're not politicians.
You are beyond politicians.
We are in the business of leadership. And I want to say, leadership and politics are not the same thing.
Quite different.
They are very, very different.
I think I was coming to Shakeel, Shabbir. Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
it's been a while.
Yes, thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on Sokoni. A lot that we want to hear from you as well as far as the problems of telecoms is concerned. And the telcos, there are a lot of issues which are coming up. But so far, what is your assessment, especially on the editorial cartoon that we were having today? And this is what now we're discussing on that particular anticipated rally or the meeting in a
town hall.
In a town hall.
Mothers Union.
Mothers Union. In fact, actually, it's been aptly chosen as a mothers unions.
That's the name of the hall.
From
the governor.
A rose by any other name is a rose. Yeah, it smells the same. I think that's the first thing. We haven't in Kenya, not really seen many town hall meetings. As per town hall meeting, I don't know why we use that word town hall meeting. Why couldn't we just call it a kamukunji to start off with? Yeah. So we are Americanizing something that we should not do. If it's a meeting, and I'm told it is, as you said, sometimes the best thing to do in leadership is to let whoever it is do his bit, and let him shine or not shine out of his own volition. Because sooner or later, if you go and demonize this, you are just giving them the attention they need. Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't need that attention. They do. I have been part and parcel of opposition politics for some time, and it is how you place your position and who you deal with. And I really do feel that the government should just allow them to continue and see whether the reception is good or not. And the issue of, we fought very hard during the Constitution review. You were there. Yep. The Constitution review. I think, Professor, you were there. 97, 2000, 2002. We fought very hard to professionalize the police, to make them more a force of service and control of the control of the laws, not to be abrasive. But unfortunately, the people we recruit in the police force the quality determines the quality of the police force. And I can tell you one for a fact. I was a reserve police officer for some time. It really depends on that particular thing. And remember, the police officers get up. They're probably hungry. They're probably not being fed. They're going out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to go and control a particular situation. So, much of it depends on that particular police officer and that particular commander and those who are planning that meeting. Now, I see no agenda. Is there an agenda, Dr. Ari or Professor?
Should be.
Have you seen a governor? Any agenda?
Yes, I have seen an agenda. You want me to answer right now?
No. So there's an agenda. Everybody knows the agenda.
Yes.
Everybody knows the agenda.
Yes.
Because everybody knows there's a meeting. So the meeting is saying we have a meeting at such and such, and one of the agendas is to discuss our dividends, to discuss A, B, C, D, E. Yeah? So the agenda is the high cost of living or whatever else. So if you can go and restrict yourself, because they had a town meeting in City Hall Was it City Hall? Or
Fungamano.
Fungamano. And I thought it was meant to be City Hall. I
No,
was
no,
invited
it
to
was,
City Hall.
It was Town Hall.
Charter Hall.
Fungamano.
It was
There was a
actually,
different
yeah.
one, a second one.
Okay. So let us, we fought a long time to have alternative views. And remember, bear in mind one thing, whether you like it or not, we must be working towards proportional representation. That's what we were talking about for a very long time. You cannot just write off a person or a group of people who have over half or nearly half the population of Kenya voting for half the voters voting for them. You cannot write that person off. What you really need to do is, there should be what we call a ground, like a holding ground. A ground with neutrality rules the day. What is happening right now is Sirkali ni yetu and we will do as we want. Yeah? And unfortunately that's even happened in the last parliament, the Kibaki Cup parliament. It did. You were there. It did happen. Yeah? It was only who you would take with you to go and meet your uncle what mattered. But did it really go? You know, that was the informality of it, which helped a lot. You know, the governor would just come and say, let's go. And President Kibaki would welcome people and say, come and have tea. But it now made him the more important person to be in touch with. So I think the issue really is, that is a sort of interaction we need.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And of course, we have Gituro cartoon from the People Daily as well. We're just trying to remind us of how it is getting hot in Sudan right now. How will it affect also the Horn of Africa in terms of business? We'll also be teasing out that much later. But we want to hear from the president, who was calling for, of course, talkings and ceasefire for the two leaders, which is up next.
Kenya is deeply alarmed that a misunderstanding over a single outstanding item in the political framework agreement, namely the time frame for the integration of the rapid support forces into the Sudan armed forces, has degenerated into violent conflict. There is real danger that the escalation of hostilities in Sudan could implicate.
Right, that's what she covers.
Okay.
The story is on page 3.
Okay.
Then last minute to meet today.
Well, I do apologize for that poor editing there. We'll just rectify it. We'll play it much later. But of course, you get the indication of where we stand as a country as far as this war is concerned. And I just wanted to pick up with you, Ndiritu Muriithi. We are looking at a situation where it's bound to blow up. And we know Sudan and Kenya, we have good trading relations as well. If this is ongoing, what is bound to happen?
Well, it has blown up. I don't think it's a future thing.
Yeah.
There is fighting in Khartoum.
Because there are backbearers, trepidation and fears that, you know, the
That it will be-
conflagration
it will
of this
be
will,
bigger and
it
bigger.
will be bigger and bigger.
That would be my guess. And, you know, perhaps Dr. Ochuodho here is more versed with the region than I. But what you see is different interests in Sudan. You get a sense that there are underlying hands, that the confrontation between these two army generals who were serving together, one was the deputy of the other. The commander of the Rapid Support Force was the deputy of the commander of sort of the regular army. But what you see are different interests, and one has to look at what is the role, particularly of UAE, what is the role of Russia, what is the role of other powers, because remember, Sudan has very important ports along the Red Sea, along the key shipping, if you will, corridor. So I would think that it is not just a simple matter, that there are forces behind that are not seen up front in the conversation that is going on. Obviously, IGAD is a critical if you will, player, because it is the regional organization that perhaps can create the platform for negotiation.
Thank you. Thank you. I have the bite back. Let's just retake it so that we can hear what the president said.
To the IGAD heads of state mission when it visits Khartoum. The United Nations, Africa Union, IGAD, and all the other stakeholders for the Sudan must lead a process that extends beyond mere cessation of hostilities towards the restoration of sustainable peace, security, and stability.
Yes, and of course, we keep our eyes peeled on what is happening in Sudan. Kenyans also have been adversely affected there. We had one lady who is crying for her daughter who was shot in Sudan. She was recuperating in the hospital the last time we checked, and we have been promised by the state of evacuating most of the Kenyans. We have also in Uganda still this adversely affecting them. Shem Ochuodho, you are the Kenya Diaspora Alliance chair, so I don't know. We've not heard any statement coming from the Kenya Diaspora Alliance as well in regard to what is happening in Sudan.
Debal, morning. I'm tempted to think that I can see why power, you grab it, you don't wait to be given. Governors demonstrated that very well.
The power is taken.
This morning, yeah. But
He only gives us a definition of politician.
The case in Sudan is very dire, Debal. We've been in touch with some of our members who are in the Sudan. Some are in pretty bad shape. There was a particular group that reckoned that they had police who were guarding. But first the police left without explaining why they were leaving. But when they went back to base, they called and informed them that they had information the place would be bombed. So they needed to exit within 48 hours max. Obviously, they could hear gunshots and similar outside, and they really didn't know how they're going to exit. We haven't been in touch again with them. That was noon yesterday. We're hoping they are safe. We're praying for safety. As Kenya Diaspora Alliance, we would call for finding a mediated solution, and would want to encourage the other multi-sectoral leaders, the religious community, civil society, business, to bring back the two warring parties to the table. This is historical, Debal, but it's also hard to rule out the global geopolitics of it, and it's very unfortunate if Africa is going to be made the battleground. And I would hold it against our leaders who allow that to happen. I'm hoping that none of that is playing around in Kenya, but can we allow or facilitate the Sudanese to find their own solutions? So when you go this route of armed struggle, you can never tell who the winner. There's hardly ever a winner, like we've seen in the case of Somalia and other places, that taking up the gun should be the last option. So my appeal to the generals, and once it starts, sometimes it can only get worse. But the fact that there was a short ceasefire is commendable. I think that needs to be renewed. It's commendable that IGAD has requested heads of states, 3 heads of states, to help mediate the situation. I hope calm can return so that meetings can take place, whether in Khartoum or Juba or Nairobi or wherever they're going to take place. Obviously, Kenya gets affected in many ways economically. I'm meant to travel to Abuja next week through Ethiopia. Of course, you would fly over Sudan. If the airspace is kind of closed, it becomes problematic. But more importantly, we need peace in this region. Africa, people are suffering. And this has been aggravated by the war in Ukraine, by drought, and so on. And when it was just beginning to rain, we thought it would recover. So my appeal is, let's find a mediated solution to Sudan.
You did. Right. Professor Gituro, Wainaina, briefly.
Excuse me. I was looking at this cartoon, perhaps I start there. It's interesting how the world is watching, you know. You see the world is watching doing nothing. They're just measuring the temperature. Yeah. And I hope these are the things, when you have things internally, the guys who want to be put in the military, you don't want to see the way of Kagame way or what happened in Rwanda. Because this internal, you have this function and this function. So I think as a world, we have a responsibility to ensure this does not escalate. Escalate from Sudan.
You can use that instead of turning back.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the guy is just looking from, the world is looking from far. But in my view, it goes beyond getting this paramilitary joining the army. And if you look Sudan, you can really divide into two. You really call what the leader Sudan the Arabs, and what you call the Sudanese the Africans. And I hope he's not taking that angle, because that becomes a bit murky. As Shem is pointing out, everybody here, at times going in quickly and in terms of discussions, and I think the initiative already taken by IGAD, even appointing our president to be the mediator here, is the right thing to do. And I think the whole international community, we have learned lessons of slaughtering each other, and if you know, yesterday they were celebrating, I think, the 80 years of Holocaust. And it was interesting that the German president was there. We don't want those kind of things. So my thinking is, as much as there could be interest, so I'm very curious about some Egyptian involved in it. And maybe there's some underlying it, but I think fundamentally it's within the Sudanese themselves really to deal with it. And that's, to me, would be the take in this issue than anything else.
All right.
And don't forget, when you look at those countries, it has one of the largest gold deposits in the world, Sudan itself. So you don't just dismiss that way. You could see a hand in, and somebody pointed out when you see things happening, about businessmen control everything. So you probably will not be sure what's behind the scene with the businessmen.
There's so much which is layered up.
Who don't have shouting that they are smart.
He did. Shakeel, Shabbir.
Yes. In management and everything else, economy and in leadership, there is no short-term solution to a long-term problem. Once you understand that and figure it out, only long-term solutions for long-term problems and short-term solutions for short-term. This is a long-term problem where we have had short-term solutions. I'm surprised that if Sudan goes and sneezes, Egypt is involved. There is no reaction other than maybe one or two, as you said, a single person of a single group. There is no reaction from Egypt. There is no reaction from Ethiopia. There is no reaction from Southern Sudan, who've had their own problems. Exactly the same. You know, the splitting of Sudan between the Southern Sudan and the other was a foreign option, and one that felt that they were trying to resolve the two problems, as you said, the African and the Arab problem. It hasn't solved that. We have the same problem in Southern Sudan. We are talking about it, the same problem. The vice president was from the other side, and he has been sidelined again. So I see that the Sudanese problem started with the British, when this gentleman called Gordon, or I don't know, even we were taught, I don't know who the guy was even, probably a non-entity. But they came and they started from Khartoum and control. So the control of Sudan is dependent on the economy of Egypt. That was all Egypt at one time. Ever seen, that was, and I'm just concerned to note that neither the Ethiopians nor the Egyptians are actually physically, they're there, they're very concerned, but nobody has raised a thing. The only person who's sort of said is this entity called IGAD. I'm sorry, I have nothing that I can spin to these guys, other than just an entity called EGAD. I have never seen anything that they have done which have justified their existence. So maybe this is what they want to do to justify their existence. However, I don't see that this is going to be resolved soon. This issue of a small one, I'm surprised that the president, his foreign affairs have not been able to give him a. We should have a policy on foreign affairs. We don't have really a policy on how to deal with certain events. And something like this, maybe he has, we don't know. But to say that it was a small issue, and that small issue has blown up to a bigger issue, no, my friend, the issue was very big. The excuse was the small issue. You see, now don't go and deal with the excuse. Let's go and deal with the actual figure. Yeah, where does it come? Where does this gentleman called the former ruler? Where does they come in? What is the network? What is the setup of Sudan? The way I see it, it's again the breakup of Africa, like the scramble for Africa for gold or whatever else. And I'm seeing that there's southern Sudan. Are they going to go for Egypt next, or they're going for Ethiopia next, or they're going for Eritrea next, or they're coming for Kenya next? Yeah, I think what we are looking at is Kenya should be now building upwards. That East Africa community sorted out here, let's now move this way. That is what I would think the foreign policy of Kenya should be.
And
I rest.
So we should.
I hope you see.
Yes.
I hope you see the connection all the way to the town hall meeting in Murang'a. Let me explain.
From Sudan.
From Sudan.
Yeah.
You see, I know you laugh. Think about what the debate is, or what the underlying issues.
Yes.
Yeah, self-determination. Yeah, exclusion. Now, the issue. I mean, so as Mheshimiwa is explaining, this immediate spark that started the ongoing fighting right now is a spark, but it's the issue is way deeper than that.
Can I just add to you? I don't want to stop you. What started the First World War? A spark, because this Ferdinand was shot. Unknown fellow in the Balkans. Somebody shot
in Serbia, someplace. Yeah, in Kosovo.
Yeah, so whatever. And spark.
Was an ambassador.
No, it wasn't ambassador. It was
an archduke. He was like a prince or a loyalty person.
Fellow, Ferdinand, whatever his name is.
It was called the Archduke Ferdinand. Yeah.
Yeah, he was shot. There were people. They shot the Tsar of Russia. They didn't make a noise.
No, there's something about the town hall.
The issue is like this.
Yeah.
And you asked, is there an agenda to this town hall in Murang'a? And the convener has raised 4 agenda items. First of all, this idea of exclusion. No, and you see, leaders all leaders must choose their words rather carefully. And the higher you are,
absolutely,
the more important it is for you to choose your words carefully. So the immediate thing is words of exclusion, where the Deputy President is saying, you people are not shareholders in UDA Incorporated or UDA Limited, which is the government of Kenya. Yeah? And the convener is saying, but wait a minute, there is more than 7 million people who never showed up to vote in the first place. Are they Kenyans or not? There is 7 million people who did not vote for you. Then there is a 7 million who voted for you. So you have a third, and 2/3 you are saying are excluded. They are not shareholders in the goings on. So it's a very serious question about exclusion. Number 2, and you can see the way farmers are interpreting it. Why are we not being paid for our tea? You know, how actually are we expected to survive if we are not being paid for our tea? Not because we didn't pick it, not because KTDA did not sell it, but we suspect some unheard dealings in Now, these underhand dealings are themselves connected to this question of subsidized fertilizer. Yeah? That farmers were deducted monies by KTDA, ostensibly to buy or book fertilizer ahead of time, and ultimately the same farmers were expected to benefit from subsidized fertilizer. Yeah? How then do we end up in a circumstance where the farmer is being told, you have no pay for April, yeah? Because your monies have been deducted to go to whatever.
That should be
allow me to finish, Mheshimiwa. So although it looks like a little issue in Murang'a, the behavior of government, the behavior of the police service, not force, and I'll explain in a moment, those are the underlying questions, although they go to issues of self-determination, they go to issues of inclusion, they go to issues of listening. Yeah? And if one thing that leaders must be able to do is to listen. Yeah? And that is the whole essence of democracy. So, from Khartoum to Murang'a. Now, why in the Constitution, why did we use the word police service? It was an indication that we wanted the police to be a service organization, not an instrument of oppression. And I really think it's unfortunate that IG and other senior police service leadership perhaps are not seeing their role. Their role is not to thwart the citizen from having a meeting or from demonstrating or from picketing. Their role is to actually ensure that that picket or that demonstration or that meeting happens in a safe manner. Because you see, Dibal,
did you deliberately deny me a chance to talk on this? We are on Sudan.
But we're still on Sudan.
We are on Sudan. I'm just explaining why
it's happening in Sudan. If you're following the conversation.
Remember, you didn't give me a chance to talk on this.
Let me yield.
Did I ask about KTA and what?
I want to yield to Shem so that he feels included. After all, I'm talking about inclusion.
Exclusion.
No. I asked you as the chair of the Kenya Diaspora Alliance if you've offered any statement.
I was simply, let me finish. I was simply saying the issues of Sudan are related.
No, you had not.
Or rather, the way one way to look at them is what happens when there is exclusion, what happens when people are saying we have a right to self-determination, particularly when a group in power is deliberately excluding. I yield to you.
Thank you. I appreciated the opportunity to talk on the Sudan, but I didn't have opportunity to talk on this. But on Sudan, fine, let me just say
on the
briefly on the Sudan. Let me say.
Okay, I'm mixed up. To talk on Sudan, you didn't have an opportunity to talk on Sudan.
To talk about the Kenya, the
Mandamano.
The Mandamano.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance.
Okay.
But before that, allow me just to clarify that yes, Kenya has got a foreign policy now.
Is it?
Yes, launched in February 2015, together with the diaspora policy. At that time,
let's deal
so
with facts.
So there is a foreign policy.
There was a whole debate regarding also reconfiguring this foreign policy.
If Muriithi allows me to explain.
Can you just explain? Then I'll give you a chance.
Okay.
Yes.
So Kenya has never had a foreign policy for a long time, but in February 2015, two major policies were launched by President Kenyatta at KICC. One was the diaspora policy. The second one was foreign policy. As to whether it particularly addresses issues Mheshimiwa are talking about, that may be another issue. But we have a national foreign policy now, since 2015. Secondly, on the issue of why Egypt and Ethiopia are not involved.
So is the KK government implementing
the
Jubilee government policies?
As he explains. Let him have his head, please, so that you can actually get where he's headed.
Now, if you bring in Egypt and Ethiopia into the matrix of Sudan, we haven't talked about the Nile issue. That's probably the hottest issue in that area. And, there is simmering problems. The Nile basin between particularly Egypt and the countries down south, including Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, and
And Ethiopia's Wainaina's dam as well that you're building.
That's right. So my wish would be that the less those regional partners get involved, the better. And the sooner this matter is resolved, much so the better. My premise would be if we would find a homegrown solution, like Kenya found in 2017, having been part of that multi-sectoral group that precipitated the handshake, that would be the best for Sudan in my view. And that's why I was calling for multi-partisan participation. Coming to the issue of the cartoon of the power and the Mandamanos, if you allow, my take is, if it was town hall meetings, I mean, that would be very much in order. And I would speak here, as Mheshimiwa is saying, as part of that team that have been for decades advocating for freedom, right of speech, right of assembly, and all. Obviously, it's true that parties don't need to get permission from government or the police to hold meetings or to picket. They need to notify. But that having been said, how peaceful? And because Article 37 that's repeatedly cited, those two keywords, to be peaceful and to be unarmed, are very often ignored by those who promote the right of picketing. If it was to be just a civil meeting to discuss issues, to get solutions, I would personally have no problem. But from what we have seen of the Mandamanos, they are very far from that. Indeed, I must compliment Azimio for having written to ICC to raise a red flag. But probably, in my view, they are reporting themselves. You know, the fact that in Kenya, that there are people who are above the law. They can do whatever they want and get away with it. Maybe for the benefit of governor, that's part of what causes a problem. When one feels that you have no other way, you as a Gituro cannot picket. The police will be hard on you. But Mheshimiwa Shabbir can picket and get away with it. Do whatever they want. They're above the law. Inequality, unequal application of the law is part of the problem, just as much as exclusion is.
Thank you. Allow me to just take a short break, Mheshimiwa, so that we can circle back with the issues that we want to discuss, especially what is headlining the front page, the economy. We cannot really unpack or uncouple the economy from also the politics.
It has so much to do with the economy.
The economy, indeed. I agree. On foreign policy, you wanted to say something, but
yes,
allow me
to
just take a short break. We circle back with the foreign policy, and then we wind up the discussion on Sudan. We take a short break right now. You're watching Sokoni here on Morning Prime.